reopening the meeting. Bob?
I'm here.
Linda?
Here.
Prabhu?
I'm here.
Moore?
Here.
Dave is obviously next to me,
Here.
and I am here.
I'm here and I've not lost my voice.
So our next agenda item is public input. Anyone in the room that has any comments for the board that is not already on the agenda, or anyone on Zoom, if you raise your hand, we can take it now.
Yeah. I see one attendee with a hand raised, and I think that was relative to a question that was a Q&A that was asked and answered.
Yep, the hand went away. So, here, seeing none, moving on. First action item, approval not required, plan A&R 2022-05 for 244 Worcester Street. Do we have anyone from there on the call before we just dive into it?
This is Richard Bakari. I'm present.
Okay.
And Sam Hemingway from Garofalo is also present.
All right. Do you want to just briefly talk to what this is about? I know it's an approval not required plan, but just to what you're doing in it.
We're just subdividing the front parcel off from the main parcel of the Wyman Gordon project.
Any board members have any questions or comments?
No, I think that's just a comment. I think I noticed that plan being rather nicely done. You know, we sometimes we've had plans come to us that were less than totally helpful, and I'd like the standard we have there continued. I think I even understand what they're doing.
Great. Thanks, Bob. I'll give the credit to Sam. I didn't do it.
So, whatever.
I'll echo that is one of the nicer ones we've had recently.
Yeah, it's easy to understand what's being changed here.
Yes. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we find approval is not required and authorize the planner to sign.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I think Linda beat me to the second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Prabhu?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. I declare the motion carried. The next
Thank you.
agenda item.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Next agenda item, planting schedule and final paving for 134 Worcester Street, Discern Cannabis. Sit or podium, whichever is more comfortable for you.
Yep. Helpful reference. Good evening, Barry Atchison with WDA Design Group.
I'm Alan Villatora with Discern Cannabis Affairs.
And we're coming to you tonight to ask permission and give you an idea of a schedule that in order to try and help get the business open is to push off the planting schedule until the fall, and then follow that up with in the springtime with their final overlay and paving operation. Right now it's not a good time to plant, especially on a slightly droughted year, and just to protect and save the pavement until they get the larger trucks and so forth out of the way, let it settle over the year, and then do a nice top coat in the spring.
I'd love to be able to see the graphic there.
You can walk up to us and just turn it around. That'll probably be the easiest way.
Yeah, apparently that plan was not posted to the website for us to display
I think
electronically.
it's the same one that
Yeah.
Included in
Yeah,
the original.
it should be
Yes.
the same one as the original.
This is just a big version of it.
Okay, so that's the same.
So there's
Right.
nothing new
We're
there.
not making any changes to it. We're just you know, the schedule itself needs, you know, the proper time frame to make sure that everything takes, and we're not planting trees that are gonna wither and you're gonna have to be replaced again shortly thereafter. We just want to make sure we do it the right way, that's all.
Okay, that's good enough. How soon do you think you can open?
Well, truthfully, this is very close to the final components of it. We have most of our permitting, not the permitting, the inspections have already been completed. We are just waiting for the final certificate of occupancy to submit our final application review to the state. So pending, you know, if everything goes well, we hope to have or be on the agenda for the August meeting, which would allow us to open hopefully at the end of August.
I think that's not, what's on the screen is not quite the same.
Yeah, we're having trouble hearing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I
maybe
see.
lift up the
Probably
mic a little bit.
Sorry about that. I guess ultimately, if all things go well, we're shooting for sometime at the end of August.
Okay.
Okay. I'm got nothing to do with what you're asking for. Well, maybe. There's been a tripod sitting out in the front yard at different times.
Yeah.
Sort of sitting out there, and being a techie, I just
It's actually a water. It's a sprinkler.
I got it.
It's
I got it.
we had to make sure that the grass, you know, the hydro seed was going to take, obviously, to prevent
Yeah.
erosion and prepare
Yeah, okay.
for. And
Okay.
we had to use a pretty fundamental or simple way to get it watered and high tech.
If Mother Nature's not providing enough water, you gotta make up for it.
That's correct.
So you didn't put watering in underground.
In the sprinkler, no, we didn't. No, we hopefully in the future we can look at something like that. But
Yeah.
you know, we needed to make sure we could, you know, get this thing to a position where we can get everything else, especially with
Okay.
the plantings of the trees.
I guess I wish Chris were here. Remind me what it says in the decision that you're responding to. What did we require? Particularly as to how and when.
Truthfully, I think there's I don't even think there was any specific mention of it. I think it's just we're, you know, keeping the board up to date on where we are. We've met all of the other conditions on it. I believe we've submitted everything to the chief of police, which we had to do anyways just to get to the licensing phase. So I think we just wanted to, you know, come before the board and kind of keep everybody up to date as to where we were and make sure that it was okay with the board for our planning schedule, the way that we have it aligned right now, and the same thing with our top coat on the paving to make sure that the board was aware of it and you know, comfortable with it.
Well, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
I
see any.
drive by there every day, look at it to try to see how you're doing, how it's coming. It's been a while, but I think that marks every one of these cannabis situations. It takes quite a while. How are you doing with the CCC?
As I mentioned, I think the last piece that we need is the certificate of occupancy to submit to have them come out and actually do the inspection.
Okay.
So we're hoping to have that, and then hopefully in the next week. I'm not sure if there's anything required from us if there's a certificate of compliance that's issued at all, or no.
I don't think so. It's more of when you go to get your certificate of occupancy, you obviously won't have a completed project.
Correct. Okay.
With the plantings that are required that was approved under the permit. So we're here to let you know that we're not trying to shirk any responsibilities. It's just timing and sequence and so forth, and that it will get done. So it's a temporary certificate.
Confident that the commissioner, the building commissioner, can deal with that.
Yeah, they've been
Exactly,
they've been kept in the loop as well. We just want to make sure everybody's kept in the loop completely, so that when, you know, obviously they come to the board and they say, you know, you're not surprised by, well, no, they didn't plant the trees, and we didn't know whether they were going to, and the same thing with the top coat, but we wanted to at least keep everybody in the loop.
Good. Progress.
Thank you.
Been kind of a long road.
It has been, yeah.
It's
Good luck.
exactly. So we're good there.
Does not seem like any motions needed, from what I can tell.
No.
Okay.
No, just a quick review of the conditions in the decision. There was no requirement that the board approve the
Correct.
the plan or the schedule for the planting.
Right. No, nothing for the
I
schedule.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Okay.
We're back.
No problem.
Thank you, gents.
Our next agenda item is a determine a minor modification for 109 Creeper Hill Road. David Janik, Feedback Earth.
Let's see. I think I've got David. I was going to promote David to panelist so we can see and hear him more easily.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. David Janicek here.
Good evening, David.
Good evening to everybody. Yes, excellent. Happy to be here again. Last time we were here, we were talking about the waste intake building, which is a new building that we've been working on for about a year to take in more food waste and elevate kind of our ability to take in volume. This is completely separate from that. This is different. Where I would seek the panel's help is in determining whether and what kind of modification to special permit is required for two parts. Part one, this has to do with the footprint of an old building that had been demoed. It was structurally unsound, and part of what my team did to ameliorate the site is demolish it completely. But as you can see from the pictures, we kept the foundation. Part one, that red rectangle on the left, we wish to partially fill in this footprint. So what that means is put in a retaining wall somewhere around the halfway line of that footprint along the north-south line, and fill it in order to widen, if you will, the access road to Creeper Hill Road. And so, I'll stop there and ask whether that would require, from this board's point of view, an application for special modification.
Have you asked the town planner about this?
Go ahead, Bob.
I have, yes, and he recommended I bring it up to this board.
So you'll have a basement with a new wall along, I see, on the left side there, red shading,
Correct.
part of the, I guess I'd call that a basement or a foundation. How deep is it?
10'6".
And how far above ground level?
To grade. We're not bringing anything above existing grade.
Well, the walls today are not, you're gonna build a new wall along the right side of that red area.
Correct. In order to bring that hatched area, if you will, level with existing grade.
Right, so you'll more or less fill it in. Either you'll fill it in or you'll remove
Yes.
the concrete and then fill it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, we will not remove the existing wall. We will fill it in with gravel, stone, and bring it level with existing grade. We'll keep the existing wall. We're adding a retaining wall.
My first thought is, if the building inspector is okay with it, I don't see why we have an objection. We might, I suppose that you want to make a minor change in your site plan to reflect, file
Absolutely.
an updated site plan. Anybody have any other ideas about that?
No,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with considering this as a minor modification.
And I'll concur myself.
Move on.
So one quick check. What's the
Yes.
conclusion here? Whether a minor mod request is required or not required?
I think it could be a very minor request. You're going to have to update
The site plan.
You should update the site plan.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
and
my
come in
thinking,
and ask for
someone
it to be minor.
can correct me. I think maybe update the site plan, submit it to us as a minor modification. We'll stamp it just to be on the safe side.
Well,
What do you think?
ask us, put it on the agenda to ask us
Yeah.
to accept it as such and take
Yeah.
action on it.
Yeah, I think with nothing more than an updated site plan, we could treat this as a minor modification that does not require a public hearing.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
All right,
we can-
perfect. So that's part one. Part two is in the rest of the vacant space, we plan to put equipment that stores finished animal feed. They might be silos, they might be other forms of storage, but it's either way, we're using the existing footprint, the rest of it anyway, after we backfill part of it, to put in grain elevators, some conveyors, and anywhere between 0 and 3 silos. Those are depicted with those orange/yellow circles at the very bottom. Same question here, whether minor or full mod, or whether you would recommend that I sequence them, do it all in one go. What would you think is the best path here?
That's the same foundation.
Correct.
Okay. And what you're proposing to put there, that's below grade?
It goes all the way to below grade, yes. As in to the base, to that same slab in that hole, if you will, where the old office building used to be.
Okay, so it won't be there won't be anything new added above grade that you would see. Like,
No, you would see the silos would extend beyond grade. They are as tall. They would be up to 30 feet above grade.
Oh.
And actually, yeah, this picture that's on the screen right here shows it most well. You see the basement, if you will, and it sits in the basement, but it's taller than the 10'6", right? The exact plans aren't known yet, but they could be as high as the existing building next to it.
So that's a little different situation. That's
Correct.
Quite visible.
And what, I don't know if this helps or not, what used to be there is an office building roughly 30 feet high, which was condemned and which we demoed.
Yeah. But all of this is not enclosed in a building. It's
Correct. This would be not enclosed in the building.
sound towards.
And I don't know if this helps either, but the text just above the picture, right? This is uncovered, so there is no building addition.
Okay.
There are no, these are entirely exterior structures. Net less than 35 feet above grades, and we are outside any riverfront or other conservation area areas.
Might be safer just going through the process.
If Bill is in the TV booth, it'd be nice to zoom in on the only people in the room so we can see them a little bit more from out here. Probably can't even hear me. I think there's maybe we should do a hearing on that.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that. That's not a problem.
it's definitely
so that people can get to see what they're going to get to see out there.
Yeah, I don't think it's really going to end up being an issue at all, but I think it would be a good idea so we know really what you're talking about. And basically, you're industrial.
Yeah.
You're not going to build a house there.
Correct.
But
You know,
there are a few residences not far away, though.
Yeah, no, we're sandwiched. This is an OLI area zoning, sandwiched between two residential areas, one Worcester and one Grafton.
Yeah, I know.
Yep,
So,
we're all
that
too
would be
familiar
nice
with the
if-
situation there,
Yes.
the zoning situation.
Yeah, I think it's close enough to the edge on is it minor or not, and I think it does sit on the side that it probably needs a formal minor hearing.
Yeah,
It
it's
may
likely to
not-
be a pretty
it may
routine
be,
process.
Yeah,
I think it may be more than a formal process, right?
Right. Yeah, just a formal process. It's again not. I think it's probably not much more than a revised plan,
right.
and the formal notification of the hearing. This strikes me as a hearing that's likely to be open and closed the same night. Probably not take more than a few minutes,
I would think likely, yes.
but I mean, you
It
never say
depends
never.
on whether any of those residents want to come around
Yeah.
and have something to say.
Sure.
They should-
Would it
It's best if they have a chance.
would it be appropriate to request this such a formal hearing, I suppose, on the next planning board meeting, which I believe is the 11th of July?
It has to be advertised.
We need to advertise it for abutters, and I don't think that would.
No,
It'd
you
probably
know,
be end of July at the
it
earliest.
takes at least 3 weeks. You got to get the application in. They've got to schedule it. And they've got to publish it twice. The first of which is more than 14 days before the hearing. The pain in the. Well,
You're correct. I've been through that process once before. I remember it well. So the abutters need to be notified, etc. But very good. At least I have, I know that I need to do that for the silos and for the grain elevator, or for the storage equipment.
right.
But as far as the internal kind of like the retaining wall and the backfill, right? That is something that I can bring up next week with an updated, or next planning board meeting with the updated site plan for you guys to see and move on. Would that be appropriate?
I think that's perfectly fine. I would say that if you wanted to bundle it together in one in the hearing, we can do that too.
If you're already going to be talking in a formal hearing, you save a trip for the minor, unless you want to start digging out there, building out there.
No, we wouldn't start building
That's what I
before this is all tied up. But the retaining wall is something that that expanded lane is something that we could, quite frankly, use sooner rather than later, so that we can have a truck scale, that type of thing. So I would like to sequence them, and it sounds like with the timelines involved, it totally makes sense to do the easy stuff first, and follow up after towards, like you suggested, the end of July, to start the formal kind of process nowish, so that we can make the determination then. Would that work?
I think that works.
Yeah,
Sounds right.
I think that works out well.
All right. Well then, thank you for your time tonight. I'm finished.
All right. Thank
you
you
very much. Okay, next on our agenda is bond approval, Village at Institute Roads, Pulte Homes, and Afonso Builders.
Hey, good evening. Thanks again for putting us on the agenda. If you recall, we were at the meeting 2 weeks ago where we presented where there was a covenant that was included as part of the original Village at Institute Road application and approval. We are looking to convert that to surety bonds. We presented that last week. At the time, Chris had mentioned that council, there were a number of items that we're still waiting on review, and that hadn't happened. So we were asked to push this to this week, to this meeting. In the meantime, we have had communications with Chris where he had sent us a kind of a bond template, which we then filled out and sent back to him last week, which I believe that the board does have.
Yeah, we did receive that template. I do know that I was just informed late today that council on the town side is still in the process of sorting this out. So I don't know what the will of the board is at the moment.
Well, I think
You can't do anything.
I think but the same reason I asked for input from council before, it's the same reason now. I want input from the council. So I think we need to wait until we can get that.
I believe we were informed that council expected to be done with work on this before our next meeting.
That's what I would believe, yes.
Okay, so I from the sounds of it, it's the board's wish to to get some more confidence from council after their review, and we could communicate in the meantime through Chris and the planning office as far as if anything else is needed or if there are any adjustments necessary. And then we'll assume that we will get notification in that period if this will get pushed to 2 weeks from tonight.
Yes.
That's my thing. I do see Prabhu's hand. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Quick question. I saw both the bonds, the performance and the surety bond, both of them, the last 3 pages have review comments, right? It's under review comments, not review comments. There are some reviews, the red lighting and all those stuff. Just curious, if this was a template that you received from the town, what were these corrections or additions? Were these from your side or were these part of the template?
So the template that we received was a pretty boilerplate with no specific project specific information. So we provided the red line version to the town just to make it clear what areas we added text to. So it was really the majority of that redlining is us adding text related directly to our project to make it project specific.
It's filling in the blanks, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Okay.
a better way to put it.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
So, yeah, it does sound like we're not going to take any action on this tonight.
Yeah, I mean, given that we know that it's in the works with council, and
Yeah.
it's expected to be, that work is expected to be completed before the next meeting.
Yes.
We should then be in a position next meeting to finally take care of this.
Yep. I would expect as much.
Great. Okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time tonight, and I'll coordinate with the planning office in the meantime.
All right.
Thank you.
And our next agenda item is another bond approval, covenant approval for Stillwater Estates for 11 Wheeler Road. I suspect that this may fall into the same exact situation we just had.
It may, although noting the correspondence that we received about it, it appears that has changed since the previous meeting.
Yes.
That the applicant is now proposing a covenant. Previously, we did not have the covenant down there as a proposal. And this particular covenant, comparing this covenant to a covenant the board had previously approved, it's basically word for word identical with the exception of the property specific details.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that because it's word for word identical with what the board has previously approved, the board should probably have no objection to approving this one.
Yeah, I was going to note that as well. It definitely seems very formulaic from what we've done before.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything that stood out to me. I see.
We are not approving a bond here, right? It's the letter from the bank says the bond, they are still in the bonding process. The bond is not issued.
This would be a covenant that, from my comprehension, is, just like we've done it many times in the past. Then the bonding of the properties would come a little bit, formally a little bit later, but that's different. I do see Frank with his hand up as well. You can go ahead, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Frank Neer. I'm here with Brad Wright, the owner of Stillwater Estates. We were before the board 6 weeks ago with this covenant, and we were told at that time that town council didn't have an opportunity to review it. Through discussions with Chris, we had, in the alternative, also proposed a standby letter of credit to continue the work on the road. And after some recent conversations with Chris, and given the delay, we resubmitted the covenant, which again is based on what you have approved before, and we're here tonight seeking approval.
See why we have any problem.
Any further questions, comments, discussion from the board?
I don't know what we're I'd really like someone on the town side who's in a position to do so to say to us, yeah, this is okay. In this case, with the circumstances in this case.
I'll move that the board approve the proposed covenant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion is moved and seconded. Any further discussion? So I'll take a roll call on approving the covenant for Stillwater Estates as presented. Mr. Hassinger.
Present.
Ms. Hassinger.
Aye.
Mr. Venkataraman.
Present. Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
And I vote aye. I declare the motion carried 4 with one voting present. All right. I thank you, Mr. Nairo. I believe that we'll have staff take care of the next steps for you.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
You too. All right. Our next agenda item is a presentation by CMRPC regarding the master plan update.
Hi there.
You can sit wherever you're most comfortable.
Wonderful.
I was looking for you guys on Zoom. I've gotten so used to seeing everybody on Zoom here.
Well, we were keen to meet you in person and excited to be here and wanted to do a little bit of a refresher on some of the areas in town. So I'm Dominique. I'm a principal planner at CMRPC. This is my colleague, Sarah O'Brien. We're going to be leading the master plan update from the consultant side. So we will be your primary points of contact for the master plan update. So on behalf of CMRPC and our whole team, we're really excited to work with you and really looking forward to kicking this off. So we submitted a little bit of information, just some talking points. They were a little bit late to get in the packet, but a couple things we wanted to touch on while we're here tonight. The timeline, the phasing, potential general structure of the plan, and some other smaller points. So, for those who haven't seen the RFP and haven't seen the proposal, what's proposed is a 3-phase process that begins with data collection, research, and analysis as phase 1, which is currently funded. Has phase 2 funding moved forward at annual town meeting this year?
I don't believe we've.
I believe that was included in the capital plan.
I think so.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so so the original timeline had us beginning in spring. So here we are, a few months late, but not so much. I think that with the general tasks outlined in the proposal for phase 1, we can probably meet that by late fall, if you're comfortable with that. So just extend it out a couple of months.
Yeah, well, however much time it takes to do the job right.
Okay, excellent. So we will keep that in mind. I did have a couple of things to bring to your attention, though. Just today, it was brought to my attention that CMRPC has been awarded a grant, which includes a pilot of a build-out analysis for 3 communities, including Grafton, which I expect you're probably aware of.
Yes.
The receipt of that grant is embargoed, but I'm allowed to mention it to relevant boards that we are moving forward with that. So we'll be excited to work with you separately, but dovetailing in a full-blown build-out analysis that will be on a slightly separate timeline. So when we talk about the timeline completing phase 1 in probably late fall with all the deliverables to you, we would need to look out a little bit for the full build-out analysis, and which would probably be able to be complete by late spring would be my guess. And then phase 2 could potentially start in June, if that makes sense for the board. I think that would work on our side.
Yeah, I for one was very interested to see that build-out analysis idea, and I'm glad to see that that's going to move forward. That it has some interesting components to it that are not typical in a build-out analysis. Your typical analysis just looks at current zoning and that's it. And this is something I've been very interested in, is looking at build out potential with various alternatives.
Wonderful. Yeah, as you mentioned, there are some exciting, again, I didn't write the proposal for this, but there are some exciting scenario plans, planning elements, including, what if the population grows to 2020 MassDOT population estimates? What if the towns prioritize climate change resilience? Your town and several others that are being piloted for the study. What if the town prioritizes equitable housing? And what if the town followed sustainable development principles more rigorously? So I think it'll be a really exciting thing to dovetail into the data collection. Okay, so to keep it brief.
I do see Bob's hand up. Go ahead, Bob.
Sure.
Just question, are you going to include the impact of the MBTA law?
In the build out analysis, I don't have enough definition on the scope right now at present, but we will jot that down as talking points to bring back to our big boss, Trish.
Okay.
Okay, so let me go back to my timeline. Okay, so I would like to just very briefly walk through the packet that we sent out in terms of the potential plan structure. So in looking at the RFP and all of the elements you wanted to hit, and obviously the proposal, and then also looking at what's prescribed, like simply prescribed by Massachusetts general law at a minimum, we think we found some structure and organization that will be really clean, but also get you what you want. But we need to ask a couple of questions about what it is you want on some things. So looking at starting off with an major elements, introduction and population section, a land use section, housing section, an economic development section, a traffic and circulation section, a natural and cultural resources section, which will include some of the call out items that you referenced in the RFP: farms, food, the river and canal preservation, LID. So we'll bucket that under there potentially. Open space and recreation chapter, potentially developed or adapted from what I understand is in progress OSRP.
We just completed the OSRP.
Congratulations, wonderful. Did we do it with you?
You did.
Well, excellent. Well, that's really nice timing.
I think Trish could tell you a lot about that.
I look forward to touching base with her tomorrow. Okay, and then a municipal services and facilities section. We have some questions we need to iron out, but that would include the standard things such as municipal staffing, facilities including schools, services, infrastructure, utilities, stormwater, wastewater, and then some of the things that you've specifically mentioned, which we sometimes include in more or less detail: emergency management, telecommunications, internet, broadband, etc. So as we looked at this, we want to understand what, as you were writing the RFP, what your intentions were and what you hope to get out of that specific, the telecom, internet. Like, is there some specific question you want to solve or some challenge you're having that needs to be answered through this? Was it called out for a reason?
Probably was. Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay.
Chris could probably answer that better than I could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that part of it came more from Chris than from any of us.
Yeah, I don't feel like any part of Grafton is particularly underserved for internet compared to some much more rural areas of the state, but it still be. I know I did not discuss this with Chris when the RFP was being put together, so this was not part of why this is in the RFP. But the idea of making sure that what access is there, both cellular and traditional land connected would be something that I would find interesting to have. But like I said, it wasn't why it was in the RFP.
Oh, okay.
I didn't quite catch what this section is.
Sorry?
Stand by.
Can you repeat, Bob?
Hmm?
Can you repeat, please? We didn't quite catch what you said.
I said that I didn't quite catch what item we were talking about.
Oh, yeah. So the proposed municipal services and facilities chapter. So we've proposed lumping in telecommunications, internet, emergency management, broadband into this this particular chapter, which is pretty consistent with how we usually lay them out, but I wanted to make sure that there were no huge reasons it might have been called out separately in the RFP. But we can dig into that when Chris is back, if you like.
Yeah. That,
I don't, okay. I'm pretty confident that there's no big deal there, having been a little involved in telecommunications and internet in the town.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And by the way, hi.
Hi. Hi. Nice to hear from you, Mr. Chairman of our little group. So through this chairman, we have one other proposed chapter, health, wellness, and quality of life as outlined in the RFP. We are still working to outline exactly what that would look like. It's not one of the prescribed chapters under MGL, but we're happy and excited to undertake it with you. But we'll need to work together or with Chris as well to define it a little bit.
Yes, this struck me as an interesting concept for including this in the plan. But but my note on that was I like it, but I'll be real interested to see what we can work out in this. What is it really going to mean, and what's it going to include?
So we have a very rapidly growing public health team at CMRPC, but it's an emergent area, as some of you may know, for us. And they had indicated that a lot of the data out there is available primarily at the state level. So we'll do what we can to dig into it with you as possible.
Be interesting to see what we can do with it.
Excellent. So
it might turn out that we can't do as much as it sounds like it'd be cool, but it's worth exploring.
Excellent. Well, we're really excited for this one. So we have put together a basic framework for potential maps and data sets. It's not all encompassing, but it's our basic work plan for right now. I have a couple of suggestions in that, like with the build out analysis that's listed on here, some of the maps, the zoning maps that would feed into that, maybe switching out some of them for something more simple, since you're going to have those maps in a more meaningful and detailed way through the subsequent build out analysis. But it's pretty straightforward otherwise, I think. Any questions on what we've proposed, or any thoughts?
I have one thought.
Sure.
This is Prabhu here. So on the economic development chapter, if you scroll there, is there an opportunity for the larger public's involvement to provide their inputs? Is that part of the plan to collect input from the public, ideas?
Okay, so in terms of the community engagement plan, as you might recall, there are a number of different data collection avenues outlined. I do have the proposal in front of me, or the RFP as well, if we want to dig into it, but I think there's survey identified, so we would be building a community-wide survey. We could also build a more targeted survey for the different types of communities. We intend, as always, to do stakeholder interviews, different focus groups. Those are always really fruitful, the focus groups with the business community and developers. Any ideas that you have or you would like to see for phase 2 for the community engagement? We're very keen to make it a robust process.
That's one of my big interests is in really trying to go out of our way with community engagement. Trying to do more than what I've typically seen us done in the past for other plans. Like, well, throw a survey out there and get 50 responses or 100 responses, and we tried. I think we can try real hard on this, and we can probably get pretty creative in some community engagement ideas, and that's something that I think that really comes in the phase 2 here. But as we prepare to get busy in phase 2, that's one of the things I think we'll want to spend quite a bit of time on figuring out. How many ways can we reach out to the community, in particular reach out to people in the community that typically maybe don't get involved or are hard to reach?
Right.
So Sarah is the champion of our ongoing regional plan at CMRPC, and she's designed the community engagement campaign. And she said, I'm so excited to start Grafton Master Plan because they set aside a whole phase just for community engagement.
Yep.
Really and I feel the same way. It's awesome stuff. We're so excited.
So, and to Prabhu's point, I mean, there's, that's part of trying to maximize our reach out to make sure that we we, to the best of our ability, we reach out to everybody who might have something to contribute to this.
Yeah. I wanted to comment too, even before Dave got in on this, about my interest in broad, multifaceted efforts to do community engagement in whatever ways we can. As it happens, I'm the one who did the web survey for the original, for the 2001 plan, in fact. We got about, I think we got 500 some responses, but it was still, you really needed a lot more than that. And you just mentioned the 2050 plan up at the commission, and I've been very interested in all of the different work that I'm hearing about being done for engagement on that, and I want that here too.
Wonderful. Well, if you have any suggestions, we look forward to hearing them at any point in time. We can jot them down for later discussion, or start fleshing them out as we get into this and dig into phase one. I think that is my briefing, and also just a couple of small questions. I understand that Chris, I overheard you say that Chris may be out for about 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe, last I know, he was planning to take his leave this week and next week.
Okay, I don't expect we're going to have any burning questions in the next 2 weeks, but who would be our primary point of contact in Chris's absence?
Probably Natalia in the office, and then she can put you in contact with anyone else who might be more appropriate. I assume Natalia is going to be on top of Chris's status.
Wonderful. She really helped us out a lot this morning. And then the only other thing is, I think from our side, is I know we need to get Evan to execute a contract unless the planning board has signatory authority.
I believe that would be Evan.
Yeah, I believe that'll be Evan.
Okay.
And in fact, I believe the select board had voted to authorize that already. So.
Okay.
Yeah, just reach out to Evan or the office there.
Okay. Wonderful. Is there any?
Yeah, a couple of things to toss in here to the mix. One of the things that you mentioned, and I love this. This is sort of a pretty good outline here, but reaching out, reviewing prior plans, compiling prior planning recommendations. I've done that for the 2001 master plan. 195 recommendations, of which about 50% of them were either completed, partly completed, or are ongoing. So that's actually on. I think Chris posted that on the website under our master plan. So that's available to you. I've got also a lot of notes about some of the other plans and recommendations. So that's probably could be of some help. Some of the plans that are as they're listed here in this document before us. There's a couple of things that can be updated. They're not wrong. They're just like the Worcester Street Village. Those two items there. Those have been completed.
Oh wow, great, perfect.
And let's see. There was an economic development self-assessment, which is mentioned here. That also has been completed. There's a hazard mitigation plan that has just been updated. I'm not sure if the update's totally final yet, but we've worked on that just recently, and it probably wouldn't hurt to just go through that. I can go through this list and give you any updates that come to my mind. There may be some additional things that I might have listed somewhere that you haven't got on there. So the more complete this can be, the better for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And moving forward, do you envision that you would like to? How would you like to approach changes to finalization of the phase one data collection data sets? Would you like? Is this a reasonable starting point? I can't see we would take anything off of this. But how would you like to proceed with finalizing this?
The list of data collection?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'd be happy to, review that, give it a more thorough review. I kind of gave it a quick once over this afternoon, but I can look at that in more detail, as can any of the rest of the board members.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I'm not the only board member who is really interested in updating this master plan, since we frequently talked about it for a number of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can, those of us who are interested, and we, probably best for us to get that fed back to you through the office, I suppose, through Chris.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That sounds
Italian.
wonderful.
Want to make sure we stay clear of any OML violations.
Yeah. Yeah, but just, anything that any of
Yeah.
us have to update in this, we can submit that directly through.
To the staff, and then
We can set aside time at every meeting for us to go over stuff that we want to discuss as a board,
Yeah.
as input to that. A couple of other things that I found interesting. Let me see if I can, yeah. You had mentioned something about revenue revenue related to zoning. Where did I see that?
Oh, the Department of Revenue codes, yes.
There was,
It's under the land use section, DOR land use map, acres by DOR category.
yeah. And the reason I mentioned that is because I happen to have been tinkering around a little bit with GIS mapping, and I came up with this chart shows the property tax revenue per acre for every parcel in town.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's almost like a hotspot. Wow.
Yeah. I haven't quite figured out how meaningful this data is. It's interesting to see, but what exactly we do with this data, I've been scratching my head. Well, okay, so these are the areas where we get more property tax revenue per acre, but how does that help us plan for the future? I'm not sure about that, but
It's certainly an interesting consideration. I look forward to thinking through that one with you. So,
yeah, so that one, it was an idea I got from somewhere else.
yeah.
And somewhat along the same lines. No, that's not the one.
yes,
Do you have a similar map for the expenses by area? So that would be a good comparison to say, where are the revenues, where are the expenses? Are these evenly balanced?
Now this thing keeps showing me.
Yeah, it's very
There,
exciting to
that's-
show the
that's the-
fiscal impact of almost of the zoning if you match that up with perhaps the zoning.
Yeah, I've thought about, and one of the things in your little handout there, related to revenue to zoning, and it's a slightly more complicated analysis because zoning and property boundaries don't match up in all cases, and zoning and property use don't always match up in some cases. So you might have a residential use in a commercial zone, but those are some kinds of things that are interesting to try to explore. This other chart I did here is housing density in units per acre.
Oh, fascinating.
yes.
And again, you have to think about how meaningful this really is. There are some things that look odd, like a little tiny spike here. That's 40 units per acre, but what it is 4 units on 1/10 of an acre. So density is up there, but it's in the larger context, it's kind of meaningless. But this is another kind of a view of things that could turn out to be interesting and informative.
Very good. Wonderful. I would love to have access to these. Should I reach out to Chris for them at some point, or?
Yeah, well, I should be able to. I mean, these are just sort of these were basically experiments in GIS
Nicely done.
visualization that I did just playing around. But it seemed,
Dave, can mere mortals get access to that, or do you have to have something special to get into it?
well, these are just PDFs. I can post the PDFs to the website.
Well, I'm
I don't
interested in,
anything.
if you had a hot idea about something else.
Yeah, well, this is based mostly on data from Mass GIS, and
Right.
I'm using QGIS as GIS application, since I'm not about to buy ArcGIS.
I have no idea what QGIS is or how one gets it.
Yeah, it's a open source GIS application that does all sorts of GIS stuff, most of which I have no clue about because I'm anything but a GIS expert. But it so happens that putting the property tax data into this and constructing a 3D representation of it, produces kind of a pretty picture, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, it's very cool. I think that's great for an open source platform, and nicely done for.
Yeah,
just
I
playing
know
with
you've got Matt at CMRPC as a GIS guy that knows, I'm sure, a whole lot more about GIS than I do. But sometimes these visualizations could be interesting. And
In any case, Dave, if you can pass on anything that would get me to where I could play with it, I might be interested.
yeah,
Okay.
I can send you some of, or at least the stuff I have. I mean, some of this is based on, like this housing density is based on actually some data that is not really fully available from the MassGIS, and that is the number of housing units in multifamily developments.
Oh, okay.
The assessor's data, at least the assessor's data that I can see, was not easy, certainly, and not fully not downloadable in its complete entire, and some of it seemed to be incomplete. So I put a certain amount of work in myself in counting the actual number of residential units here.
Wow, fantastic.
And that data was also useful in one other thing that I would, where did I put it? And some of the board has seen this already, and I will kind of go through this quickly, but it developed some other data. This has to do with, and this is something I'm hoping we can factor into the master plan, is really a good picture of how housing has changed and developed in Grafton over the years. Okay. And this again is mostly from MassGIS data and other census, a little bit of census data.
When you say how housing has changed and developed, what do you mean?
Well, let me go through a couple things here, and I think there's probably more to be thought about than that. But this is just one graph showing how dramatically housing grew in Grafton after World War II. It's where it really took off. Comparing population growth and housing unit growth, that tells you a little bit that population growth housing units grew faster than population did over a number of years. Another way of looking at housing unit growth, and this is how many units of different types of housing were developed. And what's interesting about this is after about 1985, we saw the condos really took off. There were essentially no condos before that. Single family has grown a lot. Multifamily has grown only a little bit. So this kind of tells you where most of the growth was within condos and single family since 1985. That's not very interesting. Some maps just showing where in town the housing was developed in different eras. This is probably the most notable area. The high growth era was from 85 to 2006, where a lot of housing was developed in the more outlying areas of town. And then subsequent to that, not much since the 2007-2008 recession. New housing, not much.
It's all very interesting. I wonder if you could put that stuff on our website, the town planning board website, in some corner, so that anybody who's interested in all of this,
yes,
take a look.
No reason why we couldn't do that. Somewhat more interesting is trends in living area and lot size.
Yeah, well, it's all fascinating.
Yeah.
One thing you're talking about, residents. I remember that there was kind of an issue when the state hospital closed, how it was being counted. And it was quite a change because there were a couple thousand people there at one time. So like the population of the town went down if you counted the hospital.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just be aware of that.
And this is what's on the screen now is a little bit more of a picture of one of the things that strikes me as being fairly significant about how housing is developed, what kind of housing has been developed, and that is that the blue line here shows a steady increase in average home size, average living area sizes. The green bars are the average lot sizes, and lot sizes haven't changed that much, but home sizes have basically been steadily increasing over the years. The mix of home sizes, this shows the proportion, the purple here is the home sizes of over 3,000 square feet. The red is 2,500. So this shows you particularly dramatically that the smaller home sizes basically aren't being built anymore. That what we're building are all large homes. That's one of the trends that I think that we need to think about. Do we want to see this continue in Grafton? And assessed values pretty much follow the same trend in living sizes. So this is sort of, this is kind of incomplete. I think there's more that we can say, but what I found interesting about developing these pictures of data is the kind of housing that we've been developing in Grafton over the past 20 years is, we really have to ask ourselves, do we want to see that continue, or do we want to see a wider variety, a wider diversity of new housing built? As you can see here, we're predominantly building new housing in large sizes and in corresponding high values. And that doesn't bode well for people being able to afford to buy homes here. So there's probably more that we can do along these lines as part of our work on the master plan to develop a more complete and interesting picture of what are the trends in housing, and given that, we can then ask the question, well, where do we want to go from here?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's some stuff that I've been sort of working on as thinking about what I want to see in the master plan, and I'm more than happy to share that with you guys, and you can probably build on that and do something even more interesting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm
One-
so excited.
One thing I did just think about that I kind of remembered is I know Grafton being a CPA community, we did just recently do a CPA plan. That would be, I don't see that listed in the data gathering. I don't know exactly what would fit in off the top of my head, but that would be something that I know at least a chunk of Grafton residents would want to see incorporated.
Fantastic. I wasn't aware of that one. That's great.
Yep, put that on the list of. That's what I had in mind when I was thinking we need to go through and see what other plans we have, in our inventory of plans, that are worth including in the data gathering for the master plan.
Okay.
One other thing that I will mention on the master plan, and that is, I think you kind of touch on that under traffic and circulation. I just want to sort of emphasize that I'm particularly looking at, wondering if we can identify the significant pain points in traffic, which a lot of us kind of know what those are. Some of the data that you gather will sort of reinforce that. But beyond identifying the pain points, there comes the question of what can we do to relieve that pain? We have some very problematic intersections, and there are no obvious solutions to the problems, but identifying the traffic pain points, and so just sort of, well, what could conceivably be done? It might be disruptive, but what kind of major changes would you have to make in order to solve those traffic problems?
Yep.
That's not so much the data gathering part. Data gathering is identifying those pain points. And
Well, one of those is, of course, we've done a little looking at before, is the stretch of 122, 140 from, somewhere near Carroll Road out to, the main,
Carol
Actually, up to
basically.
Quinsigamond Corner.
Yeah, Caroloptus, right. But yeah, I mean, a lot of us probably kind of know what those pain points are, but what I'm hoping we can look at in the master plan is, and relying on information, we've studied some of these things before, and either not found any acceptable solutions, or we kind of know what needs to be done, but it's going to be real expensive.
Okay.
And we don't need to repeat any of that work, but if we can kind of summarize that and maybe find something, just clarify something so that people who read this master plan realize that, yeah, we've looked at that and it's just not easy to fix.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to hit on that fully. So. I would like, if I may I'd like an opportunity to resubmit this to you, perhaps through Natalia, with a couple of redlined changes on our side. We, especially to reflect some of the proposed changes and proposed mapping, such as to reflect the build-out analysis, and then a couple of other things that came to light. For example, whether question of, do we have the actual data on traffic flow, truck traffic flows and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I can send that to Natalia perhaps tomorrow morning, and she can recirculate it to the board.
I'll suggest to send it to Natalia, and I'll request of her right now. I know she's still on the call, to set it up to the board on the earlier side, probably even tomorrow. That way, we have ample opportunity to review it and provide feedback back using the office to Natalia, or even discuss it at our next meeting.
Yeah, what we still have to do too is kind of figure out how we're going to organize this from our end.
Yep.
And I'm not going to suggest that we try to do that tonight, but that is something that we need to get moving on, because a lot of the data gathering work is more on your end, but there's things we can offer to help out with that, particularly that you don't need to reinvent the wheel if we've already got a good wheel sitting around in terms of the data that we collect, or some of the ideas about what we want to do. But we'll have to, as a board, we'll have to decide at some subsequent meeting how we want to organize it from our end.
Of course.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you tonight. We're looking forward to moving forward.
Yeah, I
think we are too.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm excited to get this moving and ultimately get it done. We can't get it done if we don't start.
That's right. That's too true.
So, thank you
The
very
longest
much.
journey starts with a single step.
We'll see you all soon. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, our next agenda item is listed as parking and sign regulations. I don't recall who had this added to the agenda, or if we have anything.
I did.
Okay.
Well, not signs.
Parking.
Not signs, but parking. Actually, Linda said something that got me thinking. We've been promising for a number of years now to try to figure out something to rationalize the rules about parking, particularly in the historic district or around the common. And besides promising, we haven't done too much because it's hard. I had she triggered me to think about the idea of the concept of public parking. We don't have hardly any that we recognize in our rules here in Grafton. Some places, many places do. On-street parking, municipal parking lots that are available to the public. We could add something to our zoning and the parking to give the board a way, and the town, the idea of designating public parking, on-street parking, at the library, wherever we want to think of it being public parking, give the board a way to incorporate that and consider it as part of meeting parking regulations. We know that pretty much the boundaries of the historic district, which is pretty much what you can see from the common, or what is a few steps off the common, really needs that. When we've had a couple of permits come before us where, like I in one case said, it's been working, we know it works, even though it doesn't fit our rules for the building. One Grafton Common has it may be 0 now. It was very there were a handful of spaces before the renovation. I think all of the parking there now is on street parking. So that was an idea to pursue. But then I was talking to Bob Berger about something completely unrelated, and he said that he's been putting forward, and I just don't remember him and hearing him talk about it. Recognizing just the historic district, like not have parking requirement for properties that are in the Grafton Common Historic District. And that's a possibility. Maybe, we'd have to look at that in some detail, but that's something that could be done. If that seemed like a good idea, that's something that could be done on a fairly quick timeline, even for the next town meeting. So anyway, just thinking about it, is I'd really like to rationalize the rules against the reality, particularly around the common, but elsewhere too, if there are places.
Yeah,
the additional parking at the library really has a huge impact on the common and on events there and on how the common flows and works. We'll certainly see it next weekend when the concert on the common happens. All of a sudden there's going to be a great deal more parking available than there has been in the past. So, it brings potentially more people to come to something like that. And I think the whole common area is something that, because of that increased parking, needs to be looked at how it works. Using the common and permitting and all that kind of thing. I think, and this certainly is Evan and the select board too. We really need to have a talk about the common area and the historic district. We've got businesses there that are flourishing and they're doing fairly well, and we have more potential for use than we had before. The library is a big increase. The meeting room, all of that, it's a huge increase. The parking lot at the library during the hours it's open has a lot of cars in it. It's really getting heavy use, and that's good. So I think we do need to look at the historic district a little bit and kind of redefine how it works. It's a lovely area, and I think we need to know how we're talking about it.
I think I stirred up Chris though on, we got to look at the parking situation entirely, but I'd like to maybe target some things we can actually do and get some results with, one step at a time if necessary. So maybe it's something that we can talk about some more after thought given to it.
Yeah, I will say, I think if we are looking at designating a public parking kind of definition, it would benefit us of at least talking about, even if we don't have the language or good idea how to fit it into other town-owned areas that have parking that are outside of the historic district. Other public parks, you know.
Yeah,
just
Minor
things on
Field
the fence.
has, or whatever the right name is up there now, provides public parking,
Yep.
which is used, I hear, by neighbors, some at least sometimes. Yeah, needs some thinking, but maybe if we all think, you know, we can get somewhere. I think, well, okay.
Yeah.
That was the point of that.
So the point is to make progress on this, we need to continue thinking and maybe start trying to narrow down to, you know, some specific ideas.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I'm sure it's there somewhere. I would like to see a map of exactly what's covered by the Grafton Common Historic District, so that because I can think of some potential glitches that if we were going with that, maybe that is a starting point, because that's a doable thing, even with the way things are going right now.
Yeah, I think more, you know, broader considerations aside for, you know, parking requirements in various zones and this, that, and the other thing, focusing on the common area, the historic district in particular, is something I think that you don't have to think more globally about just that area.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, that may be something that we can tackle fairly easily, while still keeping in mind some broader questions about parking.
The old South Grafton line.
Is the board's wish to keep this on the agenda for our next meeting, or do we want
South Grafton line.
I wonder if they have.
do we want to break where give Chris a little more time back to let him as staff think about it as well?
No,
I mean,
is it-
I would think the five of us could
Yeah.
could come back to the next meeting with any ideas we might have to move the conversation forward. And that, you know, that certainly won't be anywhere near the end of it, but
Of course.
you know, if we have some ideas and you know, Chris can take some of that and maybe run with it or add his own ideas as he has time. But no reason for us not to continue thinking about it and talking about it, right?
I agree. Anything more on this topic? I guess not. Our next agenda item is bills. I do not see any. I also do not see any minutes of previous meetings. Staff report. I'll ask Natalia or anyone if they know of any staff report that's worth giving tonight.
No, we didn't really prepare anything for tonight, but we'll make sure we have a full staff report for the next meeting.
Yep. Fully understood, Natalia. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone see anything in correspondence they want to talk about?
Oh, I think.
First one. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, there was a letter addressed to us and the select board regarding the property down on Pleasant Street. And I think it's appropriate to just recognize that, yes, we did receive that and take a note that I don't see anywhere the planning board is actually going to play any official role in what they're talking about. That's the Board of Selectmen and then the ZBA.
Correct.
Yep.
Did you have any more on that, Prabhu, before I move on?
That was the one. I saw a letter, the same thing that Bob talked about.
Okay. Any reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC? Hearing nothing. Any other items which may lawfully come before the board?
I had one on the regarding the master plan. Can we have one standing item? Dave also talked about it in the agenda. We can have, if there is nothing to talk about it, we don't need to. But
Yeah.
if we have a placeholder,
Yeah,
all the concerned team.
Yeah, it's a good
I
idea.
definitely agree. I think we should have something in the agenda and possibly get a page up, if one does not already exist, of our of our various documents relating to the master plan update.
Yes, I believe we got a start on that.
Yeah, I didn't see it when I peeked today, but that was literally a 10-minute peek.
Yeah.
But that I know staff is a little tight on time these next few weeks. I do see Natalia's hand. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I did start a page a little while back.
Okay.
We probably need some updating now that we've got some additional things to put on there, but
Yep.
there is a page.
Matter of fact, that it's under the planning department, studies and projects, current Grafton comprehensive master plan, and as a matter of fact, those housing growth charts are on there.
Wonderful.
The ones that I went through tonight very briefly. We'll put them up.
Stealth postings. We gotta know about these things.
Yeah, we'll put more stuff up there as we get it.
Anything
Well-
more which can be lawfully come before the board?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll take the roll. Bob,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and I vote aye. I declare this meeting of the planning board closed.